good morning. It's time to rise and shine. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I hope you're feeling fine. Well, hello there. It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday, and today we are reading chapter 10. I hope you liked my song in the beginning. All right, chapter 10. We are reading chapter 10 today. Happy Wednesday, everybody. I hope you've been enjoying your schoolwork so far this week, and I've been loving having all your assignments turned in. I hope you've been getting your grades back from me. Be sure to check that daily because I've been sending your work back with a grade and a comment about how you're doing. So we get to find out how Grandfather's visit is going to go today. Chapter 10, Grandfather's Visit. We must be ready at 10 o'clock, said Jessie the next morning. Grandfather told Captain Daniel to meet him with the boat at 10 o'clock, and he is always on time. We must certainly show him the museum, said Henry. I know he will be interested in the Indian things, but I'm not sure about the birds and the flowers. I think he'll like our museum, said Violet. It has his name on the door. She looked up and read the sign again. The James H. Alden Museum. Everything is ready, said Jessie. She took one last look. Let's go down to the dock and wait for him. Mr. Alden was delighted to see his grandchildren all waving from the dock. Fine children, he said to Captain Daniel. Best that I ever saw, agreed Captain Daniel, waving too. He tied the boat and watched the old man and his happy grandchildren as they went out of sight into the barn. I want to see every single thing you have, said Mr. Alden. He sat down in the company chair and looked around him. Say, what's this I see? A museum? Grandfather was on his feet in a minute. Are you going to let me see it? He asked excitedly, with his foot on the stairs. Of course, cried Jessie. If you don't mind the heat, it's awfully hot up here. No, I don't mind, said Mr. Alden at the top of the stairs. He saw what the museum was like with one look. Which one of you thought of this? Tell me about it. They told him all about their museum. They showed him the flowers, the seaweed, the boxes of shells and butterflies, and the paper birds in real branches. Mr. Alden looked for a long time at the bluebird sitting near its nest. There were 4 blue eggs cut from paper in the nest. The birds left that nest, said Henry, so we took it. Good, said Mr. Alden, smiling. And what did you find, Benny? I found a big bone in the shell pile. We ought to tell you about that bone, Grandfather, said Henry, laughing. Let's go downstairs and you can sit in the company chair. You see, we found the skeleton of a whole Indian, and Benny found his leg bone. Joe says it's very important and not to tell anyone but you. Where is the skeleton? Cried Mr. Alden. It's near a very big pile of shells on the end of the island. Yes, I remember seeing that pile of shells when I was a boy, said Mr. Alden. Joe told us not to pick up the Indian bones, said Benny. He said you could get men to do it right after we got home. That Joe seems to know a lot, said Mr. Alden. I'll see him before I go. Look in this box, Grandfather, said Benny. That's an arrowhead, and that's an axe head, and that's a cooking bowl, all Indian. And that's a tool made out of bone. Watch found the axe head and the tool. Well, well, cried Mr. Alden. Who told you? Did anyone tell you to make a museum to put these things in? No, said Henry. Do you like it? Yes, Henry, I like it very much indeed. It just seems strange because it's the very thing I used to do myself. I used to go in the woods all alone and sit for hours listening to the birds. Yes, said Henry, smiling, we do the very same thing. We must be just like you. Then Violet brought her violin for him to see. To their surprise, Mr. Alden put it under his chin and began to play. He played very well. You didn't know I played, did you? Said Mr. Alden to the surprised children. That's a fine little violin, Violet. You're a wonderful grandfather, cried Henry, always doing something new. We didn't know you could play. I'm out of practice, said Mr. Alden, handing the violin back to Violet. Haven't even held a violin for years. Now what else do you have to show me? You must come to the little hut to see Joe, said Benny. I think Joe went over to the mainland this morning, said Violet. That's funny, said Henry, because he certainly knew you were coming today. It makes me cross, shouted Benny. I wanted you to see Joe. He's my best friend in all the world. Well, then I'm cross too, said Mr. Alden. What time do you have dinner around here? Almost right away, cried Jessie. Are you hungry? I'm as hungry as a bear, answered Mr. Alden. At once, Jessie put some water in the big kettle. You children set the table and get the milk out so that Grandfather won't have to wait a minute after dinner is ready. Oh, you don't need to hurry as much as that, said Mr. Alden. I can wait a half hour, maybe. Before that time, the little vegetables were done. Jessie put them in a big dish and poured melted butter over them. There was plenty of bread and butter to go along with the vegetables. And because they had company, Jessie had put 2 eggs and some sugar in the milk. This is a delicious drink, said Mr. Alden. I shall come again. Please do, cried Violet. But you're not going home for a long time yet, I hope. I think I am, said Mr. Alden. And I should like to talk to you all with me. Oh, I'm sorry, and I should like to take you all with me. Just a little trip for an hour or so, he added quickly. All right, said Jessie. I thought for a minute that you wanted us to leave the island for good. Well, you like it, don't you? No, it wouldn't take very long. I just want to show you something. It did not take long for Captain Daniel to get his family to the mainland. They got to Mr. Alden's waiting car and were taken to a big building they had never seen before. Oh, it's a museum, cried Henry. Look, Jessie, look! Henry pointed to the name over the door, which said in large letters cut in stone, The Alden Museum. My goodness, cried Jessie. Is that named for you, Grandfather? I suppose it is, said Mr. Alden. It has been here a long time. You gave the money to build it, cried Henry. The surprised children followed their grandfather inside, where a young girl came and showed them everything he wanted them to see. At last, they came to a small room, and the girl told them to go in. Jessie was the first to see a sign which read, The first collection made by James Henry Alden when he was a boy of 15. What do you know? Cried Henry, looking at the birds. Our birds are just like yours. Mr. Alden's birds were painted ones too, and they were sitting in real trees. The birds left these nests, said Mr. Alden with a twinkle in his eye, so I took them. Henry laughed and said, You didn't want to kill any birds either, did you? Mr. Alden went on, No, the real birds out in the museum were found dead and brought to us. Not a bird in this museum was killed for me. And now, I'll let you go back to your island and wash your dishes. When they got into the boat, he gave each of them a box, and it was not until later that he remembered that he had not seen Joe, the handyman. And that's the end of chapter 10. What a cliffhanger! We still don't know who this Joe is, but the author continues to make us suspicious. Suspicious is a good word. It means you think something's up, but you're not sure what. You might be suspicious about your little brother or sister that keeps whispering to mom and dad that there might be a secret or a surprise going on. So today, for your writing prompt, since we're talking about being suspicious, I want you to write about a time that you were suspicious of somebody. Maybe somebody was up to something and you weren't sure what. And if you can't think of a time when you were suspicious in real life, I want you to write about why you're suspicious about Mr. Joe, this handyman. What makes you suspicious about him? All right, have fun writing. I can't wait to see what you write, and have a happy Wednesday. See you tomorrow.